Hello everyone. In this video we're going to discuss Global Search, which is a plugin for Substance 3D Designer that I made a while ago, and since I made quite a number of updates and improvements and fixes in the last few weeks, I am making this video. So there are two videos. In fact, it's a two-parts video. The first video that you're watching now is on the general usage for artists and technical artists. And the second part is more advanced, and it's for people who are programming with Designer, writing their own functions into parameter functions or pixel processor or FX maps. So Global Search is a plugin that is being used to make searches into Substance Designer. It's open source, it's free, you can get it at this address here at GitHub, and it complements the native search of Substance Designer. So to get it, you go to this address here and then into releases. So you will need at least release 1.5 or a newer version if there's one more recent available. And you can download here the zip file. Then I'll extract the content of the zip file in this directory like this, and we'll be installing this SD plugin into Designer. So along with this, there's a mini documentation in this PNG file that is basically telling you all the controls and what they're doing. And we're going to go through all this all over the videos. To install this in Substance Designer, we go to Tools, Plugin Manager, Install. Then we go to the folder where we unzipped the archive and select the globalsearch.sd plugin. Open, so it's installed there, and we can close this. The Global Search user interface is all contained within this view here, which is dockable. We can place it anywhere we want. So usually I like to place it here with the Explorer, like this. So I can switch between the Explorer and Global Search, and it doesn't take more space because it's the same layout as the Explorer. Here we have the search into, so this is the root of the search. We can expand this, and this is basically telling where we want to search from. If we select everything, then it's going to search into everything that is currently open in our Explorer. Basically, the view that we have here is roughly equivalent to what we see here in the Explorer. So this content here does not update automatically when we add or remove a graph from the Explorer, because currently Designer doesn't send the notification to inform the plugin that something has changed in the Explorer. So when you're removing a graph from here, or you're adding a graph or a function or whatever, if you want this view to be up to date, you need to click here this refresh button. So currently in the Explorer, I have opened two packages which I am using for testing. And these packages, you can find them in Global Search. So if you look at where you installed the plugin, which is here by default, Documents, Adobe Substance 3D Designer, Python, and SD User plugins. Then you can find Global Search, and once again Global Search, and then GS Tests, and there you can find the two SBS files, which are the packages that we see here. So if you want to follow along with the video, you can open them. So let's begin with the search. Here I'm going to enter a term to search into everything, so everything that is currently opened in my Explorer. I'm going to enter test, because this is something that is basically everywhere into the test graphs here. So let's expand this a bit so we see better all the fields. So here I have a tree with all the search results, and here the number of results that have been found. So if we want to expand or collapse the tree, we can use this. So this collapses everything, and we can then expand manually, or we can expand everything using this. And we have icons here to tell whether we found something inside a comment or a frame. Here this is a node, here this is a parameter function. So we have here three columns: the location, so this is where things have been found. Here this is the found match, so this column here is only for the items where we found something. For example, here there's a comment, test blend, so we found the test term inside this. But here we didn't find anything in this, but we're showing this node into the tree anyway because we found something inside the node. Here we found test as the name of a function which is being called here inside this opacity parameter. And we also see the node ID, which is numerical ID, and we'll see later why it can be interesting to see it. it helps to find errors. So this column, if you're not interested in it, you can hide it using here the preferences and display node IDs. You can remove it, but for now we're going to leave it there. So this is one view that we have here, and if we click here we have another type of view, which is not a tree this time but a list. And in the path column here we can see the path leading to where the match has been found. So the interest of this view here is that we can sort. If we click on a column, we can sort by context, for example. So we see all the comments and all the frames and all the function calls, all the get, when we get variables. We can sort by path. So now when we look at the test results, if we right click on test result, there are various things that we can do. We can copy this into the clipboard. If we want to paste it, then it's there. Or we can directly start a new search with the text here, search test blend, for example, and then starting a search with test blend. Here we can go back to the previous search, so this will launch the previous search again. If I enter here frame, for example, we have test blend and test, and then test blend frame. And every time we're hitting those arrows here, it's really restarting a new search. So it means that if you made changes into your graph, then the results are going to change accordingly. So in the context menus also, we can directly show some items in the graph. So for example, this blend node, I want to know where it is here. I can right click and use a show in graph view, and then it's there. Or this shape node, same thing, show in graph view, it's this one. Regarding comments, so this comment, if I double click on it, it's going to show it, it's there. And it's showing it because this is a comment which is associated to a node. So it's basically showing the node associated to the comment, because currently we cannot show comments which are not related to a node, and we cannot show frames either, because this is not currently supported by the API in Substance Designer. Some of the items here we can directly show them, and others we can't. But eventually, as the API progresses, we may probably be able to show everything. Here, for example, I have a graph, so I can right click and open in editor, and this opens this graph. Same thing as I could have done here from the Explorer. I can also show this graph in the Explorer using right click and show in Explorer, and then it selects it in the Explorer. So now about the type of search that is being made here by default is that this term here is being searched inside any word. So it means that here, for example, I have a term which is not separated by spaces, but still it finds it because test is part of test underscore double. Here, for example, I have fx. So if I type just fx, it's going to find this because there's fx, but it's going to find this also because there is fxm. Now, if we want to find an exact term, we can, in the preferences, check this whole word, and then the exact term will be searched instead of looking inside other words, and we'll see that afterwards. So we can clear the search results using this. So let's do test again. Now let's say I want to search for test, but only in test graph 1. Then I go there and test graph 1 and search. To start the search, I can either hit enter, the enter key, or press this button here. So this view here, to open a folder, for example, or a container, you just click on the container and it also selects it there. And to close the combo, you can click outside, or you can double click also on the folder. Then it's going to look for things only inside this folder. If we open this, we have a history of the terms that we searched. This history here is persistent, which means that if you close Designer and you reopen it later, you will still have these history of searches here. However, what we have as navigation here is local. If we leave Designer and we restart it, then this is lost. So you can see that here we have nothing appearing because I changed the route here. So when the search is being done back and forth like this, it's not keeping the route. If I select now everything, then I will have results in all my searches. So in addition to the history, we also have presets here. So let's look at this one, to do, for example. search. So this is going to find all the to-do like this in uppercase. So basically this is if you want to have a to-do list and you write into your comments under your nodes or into frames what's left to do in your graph, you can easily find your to-do list like this. And same thing, if you are doing temporary things, you can mark them with TMP and find all the TMP. You will see them here. Then underneath here we have filters for nodes. So we can tailor the searches by node types. So let's open this. By default this is all graph nodes, and then we have here a list of atomic nodes. So atomic nodes in Designer, they are nodes which are native to Designer that we don't see the implementation, and they are the basis in fact of all the other nodes. Here we have FX map nodes which are specific to FX maps, and here library nodes. So these are the nodes which are provided by default in the library of Substance Designer nodes. There are a lot of them, and we can tailor the search function of these nodes as well. And the other pop-up here is for function nodes. So before going further, we're going to discuss a little bit the search in Designer using the native search. So you can see there are a few differences with the native search. So let's go, and so here I'm gonna get back and do test. So we have all these test results. Now if we type test here, we have nothing popping up. We have options here like recursive mode and fuzzy mode, but we have no hit, no match. So this is because apparently Designer is not looking into the comments. If we reduce here our search in preferences, I'm going to disable the comments, for example. So here, yeah, by the way, we have search filters, and we can tell whether we want to search the graph names, folder names, the comments, the function names, input parameters, and all these things. So I disable the comments, click OK, and go at it again, and then I have much less results, and I still see the function calls because they have the test term into them. Now we're going to use the filters here per node. So I'm going to use blend here. So I'm going to look for the blend nodes. So I'll delete the search term, because we can search for blend nodes without having search term. I just click this, and then we have all the blend nodes. So if we want to do the same thing here and in a Designer, we can do it. Go blend nodes, and we see all the blend nodes which are not dimmed. So one difference, important difference in fact between global search and the native search is that the native search is searching contextually depending on where you are. For example, here is going to search into test graph 1 because we are in test graph 1. If you use the recursive mode here, it's going to also descend into subgraphs to find them, to find things into subgraphs. The root of your search is the graph that you have here, test graph 1. So it's similar as if I had done this, chosen this as root, and then launched the search, and I would have 4 blend, and same here 4. So when I have search results, let's go back here to everything. So I can use this navigation arrows here, which are in fact navigating through the search results. And when this toggle here is pressed, it can be disabled like this, but when it is enabled, every time I'm going to click one of those buttons, it's going to show one of the results into here, the graph view. So let's do it. I'm going to click here. It's selecting here the first search result, and it's showing me this result in the graph view. And here I can go to the next blend, and the next, and the next. And again, the next, like this. I can go back, and when I get to the end, it's starting at the beginning. If I uncheck this, then it's only navigating here, but it's not showing any more things inside the graph view. So let's enable this again. So when I'm on a blend node here, it's showing me the node, but if I go like here on a subgraph, in fact, it's opening that subgraph also. And here I'm back into test graph 1 here. So this navigation is great, but unfortunately, it's not fully working. It depends on the nodes. Currently, with the plugin API of Substance Designer, we can open graphs, and we can show nodes into graphs, but we cannot open like parameter functions or functions inside pixel processor or FX maps. So if you have content inside these, then you will be able to navigate, but they will not open directly here in the graph view. This may be addressed in Designer later, but for now this currently is not possible. I'm using Designer 14.1.1. So in addition to using here a filter for the node, I can also use a term. So here is going to find the term test, but only inside blend nodes. And if I look at this, I show this blend node, I can click on it, I can see that indeed I have an opacity parameter as it's being shown here that is actually a function. If I open it, I can see this function call here that is being returned here. So I should have more test results, but I disabled the comments and frames. So let's enable this and do it again. And then I can find also the test term into, well, this other blend node, and also more into the blend node that I was looking at before. And this one is actually a comment of this blend node. This is why it's also showing up with the blend node filter. Okay, so in addition to atomic nodes, we also have library nodes. So let's look for tile sampler grayscale here. So we search, and there's one here. We can show it in the graph view. So using the native search, there are no library nodes. We can only filter by atomic nodes using this pop-up. But if we type here the exact name of the library node, it's going to find it. So if I type tile sampler grayscale, there it finds it. So here I'm in fuzzy mode. If I remove the fuzzy mode, so it finds it, but if I don't type it exactly, it's not going to find it. Like tile sampler is not going to find it. If I enable fuzzy, it's going to find it, but it's going to also find this. Usually I don't use the fuzzy mode because it's finding too many things that are not really related to what I'm looking for. But just so you know, you can use this or not. If you type exactly the name here, you can have your match. So now let's say I'm going to type size here. This is the name of a system variable. When it begins like this with a dollar sign, this is a system variable. And let's type the same thing here. So you can see that here, typing size, it finds a match inside this tile sampler. But here, it doesn't find anything. So the reason is that global search is not descending into library graphs, because it assumes that these nodes here are black boxes and you don't want to search into them. So as we're discussing this descending into other graphs, we can have similar functionality in global search, but for user graphs. In preferences, I'm going to enable enter user subgraphs. Okay. So in my test graph 1, I have a subgraph, yes, here. My test graph 2, and I have this. This is a temporary comment. Let's look for this from the root. So it finds it into my test graph 2, which is called inside test graph 1. And it also finds it into the other package because this is where the test graph 2 is defined. If I didn't have that enter user subgraphs, I would have this as a result. It would have found it only at the location where the graph is defined, but not at the location where it's being used. So now instead of searching from the root, if I search from this package, it would not find anything. But here, if I enable enter subgraphs, then I see that this is being used inside test graph 1. So this is similar to here the recursive mode. So now let's see something else. So earlier we discussed the whole word option. So let's select it. And here I'm going to look for, search for my, and I find this only as the name here of a graph. If I didn't have the whole word, I would find it also here where I do a set of a variable which has my underscore. Here the my is inside another expression, so when whole word is enabled, it's not looking inside other expressions. However, if I want to use the whole word mechanism, but I still want to extend the search, I can use a wildcard like this. So here we're going to look for everything that begins with my, and we have those back. Now if I want to look at everything that ends with var, I can do this, star and var. Then it's going to find this and this because they end with var. And finally, we can save the test results if we want to. It's going to save them into JSON file. So this is a text file that looks like this and that you can analyze if you want to make some comparison of test results and this kind of things. So that'll be all for this first part. And in the second part, we will see things related to programming in Designer. When you're writing your own functions, whether these are parameter functions or functions inside Pixel Processor or FXMap. And we'll see how global search can be useful in this case. Thank you for watching and talk to you in the next video.